In the remote mountains of Gevaudan, France, lies a story that has chilled the world for over 250 years. From 1764 to 1767, more than 100 people, mostly women and children, were slaughtered under the fangs of a mysterious creature. They say it was a wolf, yet the footprints bore the shape of a man. An ancient curse passed down through generations, bound to a blood-soaked family shrouded in darkness. Each time the blood-red full moon rises, the beast awakens, seeking new souls to devour. This is not a legend, but the horrifying truth of the curse of Gevaudan. Based on the true historical event of the Beast of Gevaudan, a mysterious creature that killed over 100 people in rural France during the 18th century, 1764 to 1767, often rumored to be a werewolf. The story follows an ancient village shrouded in a mysterious curse dating back to the Middle Ages, where a peasant bloodline is doomed to transform into werewolves under the full moon. The main character, a young hunter named Antoine, discovers his family's secret connection to the beast, leading to a terrifying chase through the dark forests, brutal murders, and dark magical rituals. The tone is mystical, with a gloomy atmosphere, fog-covered landscapes, distant howls, and horror, conveyed through grotesque transformations, blood, and the psychological fear of losing control over one's primal instincts. Episode 1: The First Moonlight. Thick fog blanketed the hilly lands of Gevaudan, a small, remote village in the south of France where sunlight rarely pierced through the dense forest canopy. Old stone houses clustered around an ancient church, its bells tolling like warnings from the past. The villagers lived in a vague fear, passing down tales of the darkness lurking in the woods, wandering spirits, witches burned at the stake during the Middle Ages, and nameless beasts. But tonight, under the first full moon of autumn, that darkness had awakened. Marie, a young shepherdess with golden hair and hopeful blue eyes, was herding her flock back to the pen after a long day in the meadows. The autumn wind carried the scent of damp earth and withered leaves, mixed with the rustling whispers of the underworld. "Don't go too far, Marie," her mother had warned that morning, but the 16-year-old only laughed it off, believing old stories were meant for children. Moonlight bathed the fields in a shimmering silver sea, but deep in the forest, a pair of golden eyes flashed from the darkness. The first howl rang out, not the usual cry of a wolf, but a chilling, half-human, half-beast sound, like the wail of a cursed soul. Marie froze, her heart pounding. "Who's there?" she whispered, gripping her shepherd's staff tightly. The flock panicked and scattered. Then, from the thicket, a shadow lunged, huge, shaggy, with jagged teeth and razor-sharp claws. It was no wolf, but something far more terrifying, a body twisting as if torn between human and beast. Marie screamed, but her cry was cut short by a fatal strike. Blood sprayed, staining the green grass under the moonlight. Her body was torn apart, entrails strewn about, and the creature vanished into the woods, leaving behind footprints, half human, half wolf, with deep claw marks gouged into the earth. By morning, the news had spread like wildfire. The villagers gathered around Marie's body, now just a mangled heap beneath a makeshift cloth covering. The priest muttered prayers, his hand trembling as he gripped the cross. "This is no ordinary wolf," he whispered. This is a curse from hell. Antoine Chastel, a 25-year-old hunter with a strong build, messy black hair, and eyes sharp as blades, was the first to be called. He lived on the edge of the village in a modest wooden hut, with an old hunting rifle and scars from past hunts. Antoine did not believe in superstition. He believed in tracks, sense, and instinct. But when he knelt beside Marie's body, he felt an unnatural chill. The tracks were huge, with 5 toes like a human hand, yet tipped with curved claws. The gashes on a nearby tree were deep, as if carved by a burning blade. "This isn't a wolf," Antoine muttered, running his fingers along dried blood. "It's more like a man." He followed the trail into the forest, the damp air heavy around him, the birds eerily silent as if in fear. The woods of Gevaudan were filled with ancient caves where ancestors once hid from famine and war. Antoine recalled stories from his grandfather of a bloodline cursed to turn into beasts under the full moon after making a pact with a witch. Nonsense, he told himself, though his heartbeat quickened when he found a torn scrap of cloth, like one worn by someone from the village. Returning at dusk, Antoine reported to the council. "This creature is smart. It hunts with a plan." The villagers whispered in panic about the Beast of Gevaudan, a name that would soon become legend. Antoine volunteered to lead the hunt, but that night, as he lay in bed, he could not sleep. Moonlight streamed through the window, turning the room into a shadow-filled, mystical space. In his dream, Antoine found himself wandering through an ancient forest in medieval times. Mist swirled thick around him, and before him knelt a man, his ancestor, with a face identical to his own, before a witch in a black cloak. "Do you wish to survive the famine?" the witch whispered, her voice like a howling wind. "Sign this pact. Your blood will be strong, but under the full moon, the beast will rule." His ancestor sliced his hand, letting the blood drip onto an ancient book, and suddenly his body twisted, sprouting fur, transforming into a massive wolf. A howl echoed, and Antoine jolted awake, drenched in sweat, his hand clenched as if gripping a weapon. He sat up and looked out the window. The moon still shone bright, and from the distance came a howl in reply, closer than ever before. The curse had begun, and Antoine did not yet know that it was flowing through his own veins. Episode 2: The Family Secret. The weak morning sunlight after the terrifying dream streamed through the cabin window, but Antoine still felt a chill deep to his bones. The howl from the night before still echoed in his head, like a warning from hell. He sat up, his hands trembling as he gripped his hunting rifle, eyes fixed on the Gevaudan forest shrouded in thick fog. The once peaceful countryside now felt like a living grave, with villagers whispering about the beast, the creature that had torn Marie apart and could return at any moment. Antoine decided to delve into that dream. His grandfather, Jean Chastel, had once been a famed hunter, but had died mysteriously 10 years earlier after a full moon night. Antoine rummaged through the musty attic, where dusty old wooden boxes were piled high. Amid the yellowed papers, he found an old leather journal, its cover engraved with a howling wolf. "What is this?" he murmured, his heartbeat quickening. The first page, written in shaky handwriting, read, "The Curse of the Chastel Bloodline, beginning in the year 1415. Flipping through, Antoine read about his ancestor, a farmer named Guillaume Chastel, who had survived the horrific famine in medieval France. Guillaume had wandered deep into the forest, where he met an outcast witch, an old woman with eyes as red as blood. She promised him the strength to survive. "Your blood will be immortal, but under the moonlight, the beast within will reign." Guillaume signed the pact in blood, and from then on, the family was cursed. Antoine felt a shiver. The dream from the night before matched these words exactly. "Impossible," he whispered, but deep down, he knew this was no superstition. Outside, the church bell rang, signaling another anxious day. Antoine tucked the journal inside his coat, deciding to keep it secret until he could learn more. Late in the afternoon, while Antoine was repairing his rifle at the forest's edge, a scream rang out from the southern fields. Villagers rushed over, and a horrifying sight awaited them. Pierre, a strong farmer, lay lifeless, his body torn apart. Fresh, hot blood stained the grass, and the familiar half-man, half-wolf tracks led deep into the woods. Pierre had been dragged dozens of meters, with deep claw marks in the earth as if the creature had been toying with its prey. "Dear God, it's attacked again," an old woman cried, clutching her cross. Antoine knelt to inspect the wounds. The throat had been ripped out by teeth, but strangely, there was also a human handprint on the victim's shoulder, as if the beast had tried to restrain itself. The air felt heavy with mystery. The wind carried the metallic scent of blood, and the rustle of leaves whispered from the shadows. Antoine followed the tracks, but they abruptly vanished near an ancient cave, the entrance shrouded in thick fog. Back in the village, the council convened urgently. "We must hunt it before the next full moon," Antoine said firmly. But in his mind, the journal haunted him. The curse spreads through blood, and only blood can break it. He glanced around, suspicion gnawing at him. Could someone else in the village carry Chastel blood? That night, the howl returned, closer this time, like an invitation calling Antoine into the darkness. The next morning, Antoine slipped into the forest alone, carrying the journal and a torch. The cave where the tracks had vanished lay deep in the mountains, its mouth covered in moss and vines as if guarding a centuries-old secret. Inside, the air was cold and damp, with the distant drip of water echoing like the heartbeat of a monster. The torchlight revealed ancient wall paintings, figures transforming into wolves, a full moon above, and rivers of blood. One carving was unmistakable: Guillaume Chastel kneeling before the witch, signing the pact. "This is real," Antoine whispered, tracing the etched lines. The journal matched perfectly. After the pact, Guillaume became the first wolf, slaughtering villagers to quench his bloodlust. The curse passed down through generations, awakening under the moon. Suddenly, a cold wind blew through, snuffing out the torch. In the darkness, Antoine heard a whisper, "Your blood too." Panic-stricken, he relit the flame, but the feeling of being watched clung to him. Leaving the cave, he saw fresh claw marks on a nearby tree. The beast had been there, watching him. On the way back, Antoine encountered the village priest, an old man with eyes full of secrets. "Son, do not dig too deep. The Gevaudan curse has claimed many lives." But Antoine did not listen. He knew he had to face it. Back at his cabin, Antoine spread the journal out under the flickering candlelight. Later pages described in detail. In every generation of Chastels, one would transform, kill, and forget everything by daylight. The first sign is the dream, then the pain, and finally the beast's dominance. Antoine touched his chest, where a strange ache from the previous night still lingered. "No, I am not," he told himself, but the horrific thoughts spread, images of himself as a wolf, tearing his friends apart. Night fell, and the village sank into an eerie silence. Antoine stayed awake, sitting by the window as the crescent moon waned. The howl came again, but this time it seemed to call his name. He rose, rifle in hand, and stepped outside. The forest loomed dark, fog swirling like wandering souls. "Hey!" Shadow flashed past, and Antoine fired. The shot echoed, but hit nothing. Back home, he dreamt he was Guillaume, running through the forest in a fur-covered body, blood dripping from his mouth. When he awoke, there was a scratch on his hand, not from the rifle, but from claws. The next morning, the villagers discovered another attack. A child had gone missing, with only a blood-stained scrap of clothing found near Antoine's home. Suspicion turned toward him. He lives alone, close to the woods. But Antoine knew the truth. The curse was awakening inside him. He ran to his late grandfather's house, rummaged around, and found a letter. "Antoine, if you are reading this, seek the exorcist in the next village. The curse can be broken, but blood must be sacrificed." Suddenly, the window shattered, and a dark figure leapt inside. The beast, with familiar golden eyes, staring at him as if it recognized him. Antoine fired, but the creature vanished, leaving only a distant howl. He clutched the letter, knowing the real hunt had only just begun. Under the nearly full moon, pain began to rack his body, the first sign of the transformation. Episode 3: The Hunt. The weak dawn light seeped through the thick fog blanketing the village of Gevaudan, but the tense atmosphere still hung heavy like the darkness of the night before. Antoine woke with a dull ache in his chest, his mind still haunted by the golden glint in the mirror. His grandfather's letter lay beside his bed, the shaky words reading, "Find the exorcist in the village of Margeride. Sacrifice blood to break the curse." He tucked it into his coat pocket, deciding to keep it secret before the villagers panicked further. The village square, the council gathered. The priest, his wrinkled face framed by a dangling cross, declared, "The beast must be destroyed before the next full moon. We will hunt it." The villagers nodded, gripping spears, old hunting rifles, and torches. Antoine volunteered to lead, his voice firm. "I know these woods like the back of my hand. Follow me." But inside, he was afraid. The curse was awakening, and the beast could be himself or someone else from his bloodline. They split into groups, 10 strong men armed with nets and traps. Antoine inspected the tracks near the cave, where an ancient wolf symbol was carved into a tree, a twisted image streaked with fresh red, as if painted in blood. "This is a sign," he whispered, tracing the mystical carving. The wind carried whispers from the forest. Blood calls blood. The villagers didn't notice, but Antoine could feel the curse spreading wide dusk. The hunting party set out, the last light of day turning the forest into a labyrinth of shadows. Antoine led, his heart pounding, unsure whose blood this hunt would end with. The Gevaudan forest swallowed the hunting party like a living monster. Ancient trees stretched their branches like demonic hands, and dry leaves rustled underfoot. Antoine walked ahead, rifle ready, eyes scanning the thickets. "Keep quiet," He ordered, but the forest whispered back, wind howling through rock crevices like an ancient curse from the Middle Ages. They found fresh tracks, large, half-human, half-wolf, leading into an old-growth area where trees were. Covered in carvings, wolves howling at the moon, witches holding blood-soaked books. "What is this?" asked Louis, a hunter, his hands shaking. Antoine answered vaguely, "Ancient signs. Don't get distracted." But he knew. This was the Chastel family's legacy, the curse passed down from Guillaume through generations. Suddenly, a howl rang out in the distance, chilling, half-human, half-beast. The group froze, their torchlight flickering across fearful faces. Antoine felt the ache in his chest sharpen, as if the beast within was clawing its way out. "It's close," he said hoarsely. They moved deeper into the woods, the air thick with dread. The metallic tang of blood drifted on the breeze, and shadows darted through the undergrowth. Near a stream, they found an animal carcass, a deer ripped apart, entrails scattered. The claw marks in the earth were deep, and Antoine realized the beast was luring them. "This is a trap," he whispered, but it was already too late. Night fell quickly, the crescent moon casting a cursed glow through the forest. The group set up a temporary camp, the flicker of the fire pushing back the darkness. Antoine sat apart, clutching the letter, thinking of the exorcist. "I must survive tonight," he told himself. But the pain spread, cold sweat beading on his forehead. Suddenly, one of the men, Jacques, a distant cousin of Antoine's who carried Chastel blood, began to tremble. I'm so hot," Jacques muttered, his eyes turning blood red. The villagers thought he had a fever, but Antoine recognized the signs. Transformation. "Jacques, stay calm," he shouted, but it was too late. Under the moonlight, Jacques' body twisted grotesquely, skin splitting, black fur sprouting, bones cracking like dry twigs. His screams warped into a monstrous howl, teeth lengthening, claws curving like sickles. Panic erupted, torches fell. To the ground, Jacques, now a massive wolf, lunged at a hunter, tearing out his throat. Blood sprayed, staining the campfire red. Antoine fired, hitting his shoulder, but the beast only growled, golden eyes locking onto him in recognition. "Jacques, no," Antoine whispered, realizing the curse had awakened in his kin. Chaos consumed the camp. Villagers scattered, gunshots rang out. Antoine faced the beast, torn between killing him and saving him. The creature's claws raked his arm, the wound burning like hellfire. Antoine chased the beast, Jacques in wolf form, deeper into the forest. Blood dripped from his arm, but worse was the spreading pain. He could feel the beast inside him awakening, flashes of transformation burning in his mind. "No, I'm not one of them," he snarled, clawing at his own chest to stay conscious, blood pouring from the self-inflicted wound. Ancient symbols carved into trees led him to a clearing, where moonlight shone upon a stone circle, where the witch's pact had once been made. Whispers rose from the air. Chastel blood reigns. Antoine fell to his knees, his grandfather's journal slipping from his coat, open to the final page. The first transformation is the trial. Fight or die. From the bushes, the beast charged, but Antoine didn't shoot. In those golden eyes, he saw Jacques' agony, fighting between man and monster. "Come back, cousin," he cried, but the beast bit into his leg, blood spilling. In a grisly spray, Antoine fought back, stabbing himself to restrain the rising wave of transformation. "I will not become you." The fight ended when the beast weakened. Shifting back, Jacques lay naked on the ground, his body torn, whispering, "The curse is too strong." Antoine bandaged him, but knew this night was only the beginning. The surviving hunters regrouped, 3 men dead, their bodies scattered. Antoine hid the truth about Jacques, claiming the beast had escaped. "We need help," he said, thinking of the exorcist. But suspicion grew. He knows too much. The self-inflicted wound on his chest still bled, a constant reminder of his inner battle at dawn. Antoine returned to find a new wolf symbol carved into his door, a challenge from the curse itself. Jacques had vanished, and a howl echoed from the woods. Antoine looked at the moon, the pain in his body sharper than ever. His own transformation was drawing near. Suddenly, a shadow appeared in the doorway, the exorcist, clad in black robes, eyes glinting with secrets. "I've come to help, but the price is blood." Antoine opened the door, but the cliffhanger struck. His eyes flashed gold, and a howl rose from within him. Episode 4: Whispers from the Past. The night's darkness still blanketed the village of Gevaudan as Antoine opened the door to the exorcist, an old, gaunt man named Elias, dressed in a worn black cloak, his deep-set eyes as if they had witnessed countless curses. Elias stepped into the cabin, carrying an ancient cowhide book, the smell of mildew filling the air. "You are Antoine Chastel," he whispered, his voice raspy like wind over an old grave. "I have been waiting for you for a long time." The Gevaudan curse is no coincidence. It is linked to the ancient shadows of Europe. Antoine sat down, his hunting wounds still bleeding, the inner pain growing stronger. "What do you know about this curse?" he asked, his voice trembling. Elias opened the book, its yellowed pages etched with symbols of wolves and witches. It began with Guillaume, but spread like a plague. In Germany, in the 16th century, Peter Stump, the werewolf of Bedburg, killed children under the full moon, confessing to making a pact with the devil before being burned. The Chastel bloodline is connected. Your ancestor once wandered there, bringing the curse back, Elias warned. To break it, you must find the source in the ancient cave, where Guillaume made the pact. But beware, whispers from the past will awaken the beast within. Antoine nodded, deciding to go with Elias into the forest at dawn. The villagers, still terrified after the failed hunt, whispered about Antoine as the curse bearer. Before leaving, he hid his grandfather's journal, feeling the golden eyes awakening inside him. They set out, fog curling like wandering souls, the rustle of leaves sounding like whispers from hell. The Gevaudan forest swallowed the 2 men like a mystical labyrinth. Elias led the way with a flickering torch, lighting up ancient trees carved with wolf symbols, deep grooves as if etched by claws. "This cave has existed since Roman times," Elias explained, "a place where witches hid from the church." Peter Stump once spoke of similar caves in Germany, where the devil whispered pacts. They reached the cave mouth, pitch black and cold, the wind howling through the rocks like the cries of ancient victims. Antoine stepped in first, heart pounding. The torchlight revealed stone walls painted with ancient drawings, the red pigment, from dried blood, depicting humans transforming into wolves under the full moon. One vivid image showed Guillaume kneeling before a witch, blood dripping onto a book. Beside it was Peter's stump, body twisted, surrounded by the corpses of children, a historical link to the Bedburg case of 1589, where Stump was accused of killing 16 people. "This is proof," Elias whispered, tracing the carvings. The curse spread from Germany to France through nomadic bloodlines. Europe is full of similar cases. In Livonia, werewolves slaughtered hundreds. Antoine felt the mystical air. The stone walls seemed alive, whispering his name. Suddenly, a gust of wind snuffed out the torch, plunging them into darkness. In the black, Antoine heard a whisper, "Your blood continues." When they relit the flame, a new drawing appeared. Antoine himself transforming, like a prophecy from the past. Deeper into the cave, the air grew damp and heavy, the drip of water echoing like the heartbeat of a demon. Elias read aloud from the book. The curse awakens through dreams and whispers, linking the past to the present. Antoine suddenly felt dizzy, his vision blurring. Hallucination struck. He saw himself as Peter Stump, running through the forests of 16th century Germany, fur-covered, tearing apart a child beneath the full moon. The taste of blood filled his mouth, the horrific pleasure mingling with pain. Whispers from the past, Elias shouted, pulling him back to reality. But the voices still echoed. Guillaume, Peter, Antoine, one bloodline. They told the story of the historical case. Stump confessed to becoming a wolf through a devil's belt, killing to satisfy the pact. Antoine dropped to his knees, clutching his head, feeling fur bristle beneath his skin, the sign of transformation. "It's calling me," he murmured, his eyes flashing gold. Elias began a ritual, drawing a circle with salt and blood from Antoine's wound, muttering Latin prayers. The flickering light revealed more paintings, European werewolves, from France to Germany, all linked by traveling witches. But the hallucinations intensified. Antoine saw his ancestor meeting Stump, exchanging pacts. "The past is alive," Elias warned, "and it will kill you if you do not resist." They escaped the visions, but Antoine knew the whispers had etched themselves into his mind. Returning to the village at dusk, Antoine and Elias encountered Louis, a hunter from the previous hunt, Antoine's close friend. Louis was trembling, his eyes bloodshot. "I heard the whispers last night." Antoine realized Louis had been clawed in the forest. The Chastel blood had spread through the wound. "The curse spreads through blood," Elias murmured, confirming it from the book. Under the sunset, Louis began to transform in horrific fashion, skin splitting, bones cracking, black fur sprouting like wild grass. His screams warped into a monstrous howl, teeth lengthening, claws curving. "No, help me," Louis cried, but the beast took over. He lunged at Elias, tearing his cloak, blood spraying from the wound. Antoine grappled with his friend. "Louis, fight it!" But the creature, now a massive wolf, ripped apart a nearby villager, entrails spilling in a bloody twilight horror. Elias blocked with a cross, but Louis turned toward Antoine, golden eyes recognizing his old friend. In the bloody fight, Antoine stabbed him in the shoulder, but the wound healed instantly, the curse's power. Louis howled and fled into the forest, leaving behind a corpse and a village gripped by terror. Antoine knelt by the body, realizing the curse was no longer just in him. It was spreading like a plague from history. Night fell, the village drowning in panic, Lewis's howls echoing from the forest. Elias bandaged his wound. We must find the original book in the cave to break it, but the past will whisper even stronger. Antoine nodded, but the pain of transformation swelled, his eyes flashing gold under the moonlight. Suddenly, a dark shape appeared. Jacques, his cousin from before, now fully transformed, lunging at Elias. "He's back," Antoine shouted, firing his rifle. But the cliffhanger struck. The whispers rang in his mind. "Join us." And Antoine's body began to twist, the first true transformation beginning. Episode 5: Allies of the Dark. Darkness engulfed Antoine's hut as he collapsed, his hands trembling as black fur began to sprout, bones cracking as if about to shatter. Whispers from the past echoed. "Chastel blood, join us." Jacques, his cousin transformed into a werewolf, stood at the door, golden eyes blazing. Elias, the exorcist, clutched his crucifix, muttering Latin prayers, but the crescent moon seemed to mock them. "Jacques, stop!" Antoine shouted, but the beast lunged, claws tearing through the air. Elias threw a mixture of salt and blood, forming a protective circle, forcing Jacques to snarl and retreat. Blood from Antoine's old wound dripped onto the floor, and he felt the curse growing stronger, like fire consuming him. "You must hold it back," Elias yelled, but visions of Peter Stump and Guillaume flashed before Antoine's eyes, dragging him into darkness. Jacques vanished into the forest, a chilling howl echoing. Elias pulled Antoine into a sitting position. The curse spreads through blood, and Jacques has been infected for a long time. But you are the key. Your blood is strong enough to either break it or make it permanent. Antoine stabbed his own hand, blood pouring freely. "We must find the book in the cave," he whispered. Elias looked worried. "The cave is where the curse is strongest. You might not come back." They prepared to leave, bringing torches, crucifixes, and a vial of dried blood, an artifact from Guillaume, needed for the ritual to break the curse. On their way to the cave, the village of Gevaudan was in chaos. People gathered, armed with spears, shouting about the beast after Lewis's attack. Rumors spread quickly. Antoine knows something. A woman pointed at him. "Chastel, blood carries the curse." Elias intervened. "He's trying to save you." But the crowd threw stones, forcing them to flee into the forest in the woods. Thick fog hung like a curtain of souls. Antoine clawed at his own chest, blood soaking his shirt to suppress the transformation. Elias recounted. In 1598, in Livonia, the werewolf Thies admitted to transforming to fight witches. The curse created immortal predators, spreading from Germany to Livonia and now here. Antoine was stunned. "So all of Europe is cursed?" Elias nodded. "But the Gevaudan cave is the source, the place of the first pact." They reached the cave mouth, seeing fresh claw marks and bright blood. "Louis," Antoine whispered, realizing his friend had returned, fully transformed. A howl rang out, closer than ever. The full moon rose, shining brightly through the trees, awakening the curse. Antoine fell to the ground, body twisting, fur thickening, eyes glowing gold. Elias drew a salt circle, but Louis, the massive werewolf, burst forth, tearing into Elias's shoulder, blood spraying. Half beast, half man, Antoine roared, stabbing himself in the chest to hold back the change. "Louis, stop!" he cried, but the beast no longer recognized his friend that a brutal battle erupted in the cave. Antoine wrestled with Louis, blood splattering across stone walls carved with wolf images. Elias hurled the vial of dried blood at Louis, making him scream and retreat. "Guillaume's blood only weakens him," Elias shouted. Antoine fired his gun, the bullet striking Louis in the chest. The beast fell, transforming back into a man, eyes still glowing, whispering, "You will be like me." Villagers, hearing the gunshot, approached the cave, shouting for the death of the Chastel werewolf. Antoine and Elias ran deeper inside, fleeing both the mob and the spreading curse. Deep in the cave, torchlight revealed an ancient stone circle where Guillaume had signed the pact. The wall painting seemed alive, a red-eyed witch surrounded by werewolves from Bedburg to Livonia. Elias placed the vial of dried blood on the stone circle, chanting in an ancient tongue. "We must use living Chastel blood to break it," he said, looking at Antoine. "Are you ready to sacrifice yourself?" Antoine cut his hand, blood dripping onto the stone, and the cave trembled. Eerie whispers, blood for blood. A red light flared, but the ritual was interrupted when Jacques burst in, slashing Elias. Antoine shoved Jacques away, their blood mixing on the stone. "You can't break it," Jacques snarled. A vicious fight followed. Antoine drove a knife into Jacques' shoulder, but the beast within him was close to taking over. Elias completed the ritual, throwing the ancient book into the stone circle. The red light vanished, but the curse remained. "More blood is needed," Elias whispered, collapsing. The villagers stormed in, spears aimed at Antoine. "You are the beast." Antoine's eyes glowed gold as he felt the beast within rise. "I will break the curse," he growled, but the mob closed in. Cliffhanger. Claire, the woman Antoine secretly loved, stepped forward with a silver knife, whispering, "If you're the beast, I will kill you." Antoine roared, his body fully transforming, and his howl merged with the darkness of the night. Episode 6: The Betrayal. The brilliant full moon shone down on the ancient cave, where Antoine stood in the center of the stone circle, his body twisting in the agony of transformation. Black fur grew thick, bones cracked, and his eyes blazed gold like the flames of hell. Whispers from the past echoed. "Chastel blood, join us." Claire, the village girl Antoine secretly loved, stood before him, trembling as she gripped a silver knife, her eyes filled with both pain and determination. "Antoine, fight it," she cried, but he only growled, claws curved and glinting under the moonlight. Villagers stormed into the cave, spears aimed at Antoine, shouting, "Kill the beast." Elias, the exorcist, lay collapsed beside the stone circle, blood flowing from his wounds as he whispered, "Only the blood of love can break the curse." Even in his half-beast state, Antoine recognized Claire. He tried to restrain himself, clawing at his own chest, blood spurting, but the beast within was too strong. He lunged toward the villagers, tearing a man's shirt, but Claire leapt in front of him, blocking his path. "Antoine, look at me," she shouted, her eyes brimming with tears in that instant. Claire's gaze pulled Antoine back to a sliver of humanity. He collapsed, reversing his transformation, lying bloodied and gasping for breath. The villagers hesitated, but Jacques' howl from deep within the cave shattered the moment. "He's not human anymore," a villager screamed, and they rushed forward. Claire dragged Antoine deeper into the cave, Elias crawling after them, leaving behind a blood-soaked stone circle and an unbroken curse. In the darkness of the cave, Claire dressed Antoine's wounds, torchlight flickering over her face, a mixture of fear and determination. "I believe you're not a beast," she whispered, though her voice trembled. Still in pain from the transformation, Antoine gripped her hand. "Claire, if I turn into it again, you must kill me." She shook her head, the silver knife falling to the ground. "I can't," she said, her eyes glistening. Elias, though weak, continued. "The curse needs the blood of love, the blood of someone willing to sacrifice themselves for the cursed. But history shows, like Peter Stump in Bedburg, love often leads to betrayal." He told the historical case. Stump, a German werewolf, betrayed by his lover to the church in 1589, leading to his gruesome death. "Be careful, Antoine," Elias warned. "The curse will make Claire doubt you." Jacques and Louis's howls echoed closer. Antoine stood. "We must find the original book in the deepest part of the cave, the place where the witch signed the pact." But Claire looked at him with a flicker of suspicion. "How do you know exactly where it is?" Antoine froze, realizing the curse was sowing division just as Elias had said. They moved deeper, but the mystical atmosphere thickened. The stone walls whispered Antoine's name, and visions of Guillaume and Stump flashed before him, as if the past sought to consume him. The cave grew colder, heavy with the smell of blood and damp earth. Torchlight revealed ancient drawings, werewolves from Germany, Livonia, to Gevaudan, all connected through a traveling witch. Antoine found a narrow passage leading to the deepest stone chamber, a stone altar holding a cowhide book engraved with a wolf emblem. "This is it," Elias whispered, his hand trembling as he touched it. "Guillaume's pact." Before they could open it, a trap triggered, the stone floor trembled, and a shadow lunged. Louis, now a fully transformed werewolf, massive and sleek black-furred, claws like knives. He attacked, slashing Claire's arm, blood spraying. Antoine roared, leaping to grapple him, but Louis was too strong, pinning him down, fangs near his throat. Despite her wound, Claire grabbed the silver knife and stabbed Louis's back. The beast howled, collapsing, but didn't die. The curse healed him. Elias opened the book, reading aloud. "The blood of love must be willingly shed upon the altar." But visions flooded Antoine's mind. He saw Claire handing him over to the villagers, like Stump's lover. "She will betray you," a whisper said. Antoine shoved Claire away, shouting, "Stay back." She froze, hurt. "You doubt me." The suspicion between them grew, just as the curse foretold. Louis, still wounded, fled into the darkness, leaving a howl of challenge behind. In the altar room, Elias spoke more history. In Livonia, in 1692, a werewolf was betrayed by his own family out of suspicion. The curse not only changes the body, but sows betrayal. Antoine looked at Claire, his heart aching. She tended her wound, but avoided his eyes. "You think I'll betray you, don't you?" she asked coldly. Antoine didn't answer, but the self-inflicted wound on his chest still bled, a reminder of the beast within. Elias tried to perform the ritual, pouring Guillaume's blood onto the altar, but it wasn't enough. "We need the blood of both, the cursed and the beloved," he said. Claire took Antoine's hand, ready to cut her own, but he stopped her. "If you die, I can't go on." In that moment, love overpowered doubt, but Jacques' howl cut through the air. He burst in, claws tearing Elias's shoulder, knocking him down again. Antoine faced Jacques, silver knife in hand. "Cousin, come back," he shouted, but Jacques roared, "The curse is fate. You cannot break it." A bloody battle erupted. Antoine stabbed Jacques' chest, blood spraying, but felt the beast rising within, his eyes flashing gold. Claire pulled him back, but the villagers were approaching the cave, their shouts echoing closer. The villagers stormed in, led by the priest holding a cross and a spear. "Antoine is the beast," they shouted. Claire stood in front of him, silver knife raised. "He's trying to save us." But Antoine collapsed, his body transforming again, fur thickening, claws lengthening. "Claire, run," he growled, but she refused to leave. With his last strength, Elias whispered, "The blood of both on the altar now." Claire cut her hand, blood dripping onto the altar, but Antoine pushed her away, slashing his own wrist so their blood mingled. The altar shook, red light blazing, but Jacques charged, clawing Antoine and breaking the ritual. The villagers closed in, and Claire, in desperate resolve, pointed the silver knife at Antoine, tears streaming down her face. "I don't want to, but if you're the beast, cliffhanger." Antoine, half man, half wolf, stared at Claire. The whisper echoed, "Betrayal or sacrifice, choose." The altar glowed brilliantly, and a new howl rose from deep within the cave. Not Jacques, not Louis, but something far more ancient. Episode 7, The Final Battle. In the ancient cave, the full moon shone through the cracks in the stone, illuminating the blood-soaked altar where Antoine, half man, half wolf, faced Claire. She gripped the silver dagger tightly, eyes brimming with tears, voice trembling. "Antoine, come back, I beg you." Whispers from the past echoed, "Betrayal or sacrifice, choose." Villagers surrounded them, spears and torches raised, ready to kill the Chastel beast. Elias, the exorcist, lay collapsed, blood seeping from his wounds, whispering, "The blood of love must be given willingly." Antoine, his black fur thick and claws gleaming, growled, but his eyes still held a trace of humanity. He looked at Claire, remembering Elias's words about Peter Stump, the bedbird werewolf betrayed by his lover in 1589, leading to his gruesome death. "Claire, if I'm the beast, kill me," he rasped. But Claire dropped the dagger and threw her arms around him. "I will never betray you." Blood from her wound dripped onto the altar, mingling with Antoine's blood, making the stone circle tremble as a crimson light exploded. Jacques, his werewolf cousin, burst from the shadows, snarling. "The curse cannot be broken." He clawed. Antoine, blood spraying, but Claire shoved Jacques back, screaming, "Stop!" The villagers charged, but the light from the altar erupted, forcing them all back. Antoine collapsed, transforming back into human form, his body drenched in blood. Elias whispered, "The ritual has begun, but it needs the blood of the true ancestor, Guillaume." Antoine knew the ancient beast, the source of the curse, was hiding in the cave. They ran deeper, villagers in pursuit, the howls of Jacques and Louis echoing like an immortal curse. Deeper in the cave, the air was cold, thick with the stench of blood and damp earth. Torchlight revealed a wide stone chamber. At its center, a stone coffin engraved with the image of a wolf. "This is where Guillaume was sealed," Elias whispered, hands trembling as he opened the ancient book. "He didn't die. He sleeps under the curse, waiting for Chastel blood to awaken him." Antoine felt the pain of transformation rising, but Claire held his hand, keeping him grounded. The altar shook as Antoine cut his hand, letting his blood drip onto the coffin. The stone cracked open, and from the darkness emerged a monstrous figure. Guillaume Chastel, the first ancestor, half man, half wolf, towering, with silver-gray fur and blood-red eyes. "My blood calls to you," Guillaume growled, his voice rumbling like thunder. "The curse is destiny." He lunged at Antoine, claws ripping into his shoulder, blood splattering the cave in a horrific display. Claire screamed, grabbing the silver dagger, but Guillaume only laughed. "The blood of love only makes me stronger." Elias, though weak, recited an incantation from the book, trying to activate the curse-breaking ritual. But Guillaume was too strong, slamming Elias into the wall, sending the book flying. Wounded, Antoine grappled with his ancestor, plunging a dagger into Guillaume's chest, but the wound healed instantly. "You cannot kill me," Guillaume roared, and Antoine felt the beast within surging again, his eyes flashing gold. The villagers drew near, their shouts echoing, but Claire stood in defiance. "He's trying to save us." In the dense fog, the cave seemed alive, stone walls whispering the history of werewolves. From Peter Stump in Germany to Thies in Livonia, all linked to Guillaume. Elias, regaining consciousness, shouted, "The blood of both, the cursed and the beloved, must fall on the coffin at the same time." Claire cut her hand, letting blood drip, and Antoine, though in agony, did the same. The coffin glowed brilliantly, but Guillaume lunged, clawing both of them, their blood mingling. The ritual began. Crimson light engulfed the cave, silencing the whispers of the past. Guillaume howled, his body contorting for falling away, but his strength persisted. "I am the curse," he roared, pinning Antoine, claws to his throat. Claire, defying her fear, drove the silver dagger into Guillaume's back, forcing him down. "You must sacrifice yourself," Elias shouted, and Antoine, with the last of his strength, cut deep into his own chest, blood gushing onto the coffin. The cave shook violently, crimson light turning to fire, consuming Guillaume. He let out one final scream before his body crumbled to ash. Yet the curse was not fully broken. Antoine still felt the beast simmering inside. Elias whispered, "The ritual needs the final blood of the longest living survivor." The villagers stormed in, seeing Antoine covered in blood, shouting, "He's the beast." Claire stepped in front of him, but her eyes wavered, the curse's seed of doubt taking hold. Fog blanketed the cave, the moonlight fading. Weakening, Antoine looked at Claire. "If I can't break it, you must kill me." She shook her head, tears streaming. "I will not betray you." But the villagers closed in, the priest raising a cross. "He is the devil's child." Elias, with his dying breath, handed Claire the ancient book. "Read the final words, and the blood of both must complete it." Claire read aloud, her voice shaking, while Antoine fought against his inner beast. He lunged at the villagers, claws, tearing the priest's robe, but Claire pulled him back, her wound dripping blood onto the coffin. Together, she whispered, cutting her hand again, their blood mixing. The coffin split open, crimson light consuming the cave, and the ancient howl fell silent. Antoine collapsed, reverting fully to human form, his body bloodied but his humanity restored. Elias smiled faintly. The curse is weaker, but it needs the final blood from the longest living Chastel. Antoine froze, realizing Jacques and Louis were still out there, bearing Chastel blood. The villagers, still wary, pointed their spears at him. Claire shouted, "He has sacrificed himself." But a new howl rose from the forest, Jacques, alive and coming. Antoine, Claire, and the villagers rushed out of the cave, fog swirling like vengeful spirits. Jacques, in werewolf form, burst from the forest, golden eyes blazing, snarling. The curse is eternal. Exhausted, Antoine picked up the silver dagger, facing his cousin. "If I must die, I'll take you with me," he said, blood flowing from every wound. The final battle erupted in the fog. Antoine and Jacques wrestled, blood spraying, claws and silver flashing. Claire read the last words from the book, crimson, light flaring again, but Jacques slashed Antoine, sending him to the ground. Villagers surged forward, spearing Jacques, but he stood tall, laughing maniacally. Chastel blood never dies. Cliffhanger. With his last strength, Antoine drove the silver dagger into Jacques' heart, but his eyes flashed gold one final time. Claire screamed, "Antoine, no." But he whispered, "If I am the beast, you know what to do." From deep in the forest came an ancient howl, hinting that Guillaume might not be truly gone. Episode 8, Eternal Legacy. Thick fog blanketed the Gevaudan forest, the full moon hazy like a vengeful spirit. Antoine, drenched in blood, drove the silver dagger into the heart of Jacques, his cousin turned wolf. Jacques screamed, his body twisting, black fur falling. Away as he shifted back. "Chastel blood never dies," Jacques whispered, his golden eyes flashing one last time before he collapsed, blood pooling on the damp earth. Antoine fell to his knees, the pain of transformation still simmering, his eyes briefly flashing gold. Claire, clutching a silver dagger, stood protectively in front of him, shouting at the villagers surrounding them. "He killed the beast. Leave him be." The villagers, led by the priest, still pointed their spears, faces full of suspicion. "He's a werewolf," someone yelled. Claire, eyes brimming with tears, turned to Antoine. "You did it, didn't you?" But Antoine wasn't sure. The ancient howl still echoed from the forest, as if Guillaume, the cursed ancestor, hadn't truly vanished. Elias, the exorcist, dragged himself from the cave, whispering, "The curse has weakened, but it's not broken. The last blood must be spilled, the blood of the longest living survivor." Antoine took Claire's hand, deciding to return to the cave to finish the ritual. But the villagers closed in, and a shadow darted past. Louis, the remaining werewolf, still alive. His howl sent the crowd into chaos, giving Antoine and Claire a chance to flee back to the cave, dragging Elias along. In the cave, flickering torchlight lit the stone altar where Antoine and Claire's blood had once mingled. Elias's ancient book lay open, the last page reading, The blood of love and the blood of the longest living survivor must unite to break the pact. Antoine looked at Elias. Who's the longest living survivor? Elias, weak, pointed at him. You, Antoine. Jacques is dead. Louis is barely human. Only your blood, as Guillaume's direct descendant, is strong enough. Claire gripped Antoine's hand, voice trembling. If you have to die, I won't let you go alone. But Antoine shook his head. You must live to tell this story. They prepared the final ritual. Antoine cut deep into his wrist, blood dripping onto the altar as Claire recited the prayer from the book, her voice echoing in the cave. A crimson light flared, the stone walls trembling, until Louis's howl cut through the air. He lunged, claws tearing Antoine's shoulder, blood spraying. Breaking the ritual, with his last strength, Elias hurled a vial of Guillaume's dried blood at Louis, making him howl and retreat. Finish it, Elias shouted. Despite his wounds, Antoine poured more blood onto the altar, and Claire cut her hand, letting their blood mix. The cave blazed with light, whispers from the past falling silent, and Louis collapsed, reverting to human form, his body covered in wounds. Is it over? Louis whispered before losing consciousness, but Antoine felt a cold energy linger. The curse had weakened, but it had not fully died. The villagers, overcoming their fear, stormed into the cave, weapons ready. The priest shouted, Antoine is the last beast. Claire stepped in front of him, silver dagger raised. He has sacrificed everything. But Antoine, his eyes flashing gold, felt the beast still stirring inside. Claire, if I change, you must kill me, he said hoarsely. Elias, near collapse, whispered, the curse needs the final blood of both, given willingly, without doubt. Antoine and Claire locked eyes, love overpowering fear. They both cut their hands, blood flowing onto the altar. The cave shook violently, crimson light engulfing everything, and an ancient scream echoed, not from Louis, but from the altar itself, as if Guillaume was dying. The light dimmed, and Antoine fell, his body free of fur, his eyes human once more. Claire cradled him, sobbing, You did it. Elias gave a faint smile. The curse is broken, but its legacy will forever haunt. The villagers, seeing Antoine human again, lowered their spears, though their eyes stayed wary. The priest muttered, God will judge. Antoine, Claire, and Elias left the cave carrying the ancient book, while Louis, still alive but weak, was carried back by the villagers. Dawn broke, the fog lifting from the Gevaudan forest. The village returned to uneasy peace. Antoine and Claire stood outside his cabin, watching the first light of day. We broke it, didn't we? Claire asked, clutching Antoine's hand. He nodded, but deep down, he wasn't sure. His grandfather's journal, now on the table, bore its final line. The curse may sleep, but it never dies. Elias, recovering under the villagers' care, recounted the history of werewolves from Peter Stump in Germany, 1589, to Thies in Livonia, 1692, and other cases across Europe. The Gevaudan curse is part of a greater darkness, he said. It can return through blood or a new pact. Antoine decided to burn the journal, but Claire stopped him. We must remember to warn the next generation. The villagers held a prayer for the dead, but their eyes still followed Antoine, as if waiting for the beast's return. He and Claire decided to leave the village, seeking a new life, carrying the ancient book as a warning. A year later, Antoine and Claire lived in a distant village, trying to forget. Antoine no longer transformed, but the dull ache returned every full moon night. One evening, by the fire, Claire opened the ancient book, rereading the history of werewolves. "If it comes back, we'll face it," she said, holding Antoine's hand. Suddenly, a howl echoed from the nearby forest, not from Antoine, but from something else. He rose to his feet, his eyes flashing gold for a split second, but he didn't change. "The curse isn't dead," he murmured, staring into the darkness. Claire picked up the silver dagger, her gaze resolute. "Together, we'll fight." Cliffhanger. The howl drew closer, and in the shadows, a pair of golden eyes gleamed, hinting that Guillaume's legacy, or a new pact, was awakening elsewhere. On the table, the ancient book flipped open by itself, stopping at the line, "Chastel blood endures forever." The curse of Gevaudan has been buried, but not destroyed. Blood has been spilled, lives have been lost, yet the legacy of the Chastel bloodline still slithers through the shadows, waiting for a blood moon to awaken. Antoine and Claire may have escaped, but the distant howls from the forest are a reminder that peace is only temporary. And somewhere, in the cold mist, golden eyes still watch, patient, eternal, and thirsty for blood. If you think this story has ended, think again.